Welcome to this very compelling fireside chat. We've spent a day and a half exploring how the future of work is undeniably human-driven, even as artificial intelligence rapidly redefines our landscapes. Today, we stand at a fascinating crossroad. AI is reshaping our work, no two ways about how we work, govern, and relate to each other with unprecedented speed. It also offers incredible efficiencies and boundless possibilities. Yet, it also compels us to ask profound questions. In a world where machines can predict behavior with astounding accuracy, can they truly nurture belonging? Where intelligence becomes artificial, how do we ensure leadership remains deeply human? This session promises a truly unique perspective on navigating this balance between tradition and transformation. As a renowned author, Yuval Noah Harari once said, "The greatest challenge of AI is not creating it, but governing it." And indeed, the essence of that governance lies in our human values, our leadership, and our ability to foster genuine connection. We're not here just discussing technology. We talk about the very fabric of our society and the identity of our people. As Jeannie Rometty, former CEO of IBM, wisely said, AI will not replace humans, but those whose AI will replace those who don't use AI. That's a belief I strongly believe in as well. So this isn't just about adoption, but thoughtful, human-centered adoption. To explore these vital themes, we are incredibly privileged to welcome a truly unique and distinguished guest. He embodies the very intersection of heritage and progress, serving as the Maharaja of Mysore, a member of parliament for the Mysore Kodagu constituency, and a keen advocate for the tech ecosystem. His insights today will be into balancing deep-rooted traditions with demands of the digital future, and his vision for empowering people in this new age. Please join me again in extending a very warm welcome to His Highness, Shri Yaduveer Krishnadatta Chamaraja Wadiyar. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
So my first question to you, sir, we would like to explore how we manage people, values, and identity in an age where intelligence is artificial, but leadership still remains deeply human. To add, there is a concept of stewardship, safeguarding and passing on something valuable, something that's central to both your lineage and your role as a leader. From your unique vantage point, what are the most critical human elements of leadership? How do we ensure these are prioritized as technology advances? And how do you see the principle of stewardship applying in your several leadership hats that you wear?
Thank you, Prasadji. Just before I answer your questions, my congratulations to nasscom and my gratitude to them for inviting me here. I understand they have done many such conferences, bringing together so many people, and they have, since their inception in 1988, I believe, been pioneering bringing together all of the various stakeholders in the IT realm. So that has been many decades of wonderful work. So once again, my add to your wonderful congratulations you've already conveyed. I also add my congratulations as well. As far as the question about leadership, and then in the greater scheme of things, the balance we require with the rapidly advancing AI, and I mean, it's already here and we're already using it. I think obviously an integral part of it is adding that humane touch. But again, AI is a tool, and like any other tool, it cuts both ways. You can use it for the greater good, and as much as we all have good intention with all the tools we have at hand, there will always be a section of society that is going to misuse it or use it for criminal things, or to harm society or harm others at large for their own benefit. And so I think building strong policy towards ensuring that if such an action happens, that there is an answer towards ensuring that there is some criminal action taken against them, or essentially ensuring that there is some fear when using such a tool, that you do not misuse it. Secondly, to that, leadership, obviously it's a growing thing, and I'm learning every day at becoming a better leader. The key thing for any leader is decisions, and at that, fast decisions. And at times, obviously, the most logical outcome isn't obviously the best outcome at all times. And I think that's where AI it has a long way to go in terms of doing your decision making for you. At many times, the emotional quotient, the sentiments that are there, there is people, varied in a state that's inherently vibrant and diverse. There is all an added diversity of everyone's opinion now being expressed as well, and having a different way of approaching things. So your best decision is never usually, or the most logical decision is never usually, or certainly not half the time, never the best decision. So I think this aspect of it comes from experience and comes from the human side of things, and applying that emotional quotient or that sentiment that people have, which is something that I've learned over the last 10 years or so when you had these leadership roles thrust on you, and certainly now as a member of parliament as well. So this aspect of it, how and where AI is going to come in, is something that the experts will determine. But as a policy maker, I think our task in that is to ensure that the framework is essentially based on the same rule of law that India has today, which comes down from an ancient tradition of what is a Bharatiya tradition. It is enshrined in the modern constitution in India and gives us all a rule and a framework to operate today. That has to be just re-envisioned in the digital world going forward. And I think that is the key task we as policymakers have, is to give that framework, and the experts that have already led the way will do the rest, I'm sure, in ensuring that we have or take the maximum outcome that we can have from this digital revolution, and certainly the AI revolution as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Shri. In fact, your point on decision making reminded me of a quote from Sundar Pichai, which I read sometime last year. He said the role of a leader, his main role of a leader as he considers, was about making decisions and getting the momentum going. So thank you for sharing that.
Not at all. I'm sure every leader, and those that are certainly much more experienced as me, will attest to the fact that decision making and fast decision making is the key to ensuring that your leadership goals are achieved.
Thank you. I'll come to the aspect of policy a little later, but I have another question for you. From the Wadiyar's historical patronage of science and education to your current efforts with Cyberverse Foundation, there is a clear thread of fostering innovation. How can we ensure that as we embrace AI and automation, we don't inadvertently dilute the creativity and critical thinking and curiosity that are vital for true human innovation?
Thank you. I mean, the golden era of Mysore, as they call, from the, I suppose, the latter half of the 1800s to around the time of independence, was marked, of course, by the whole cultural color that was there on the Mysore and the environment of culture that was there. But the base and the economy of this was certainly what we would term in today's world as innovation and entrepreneurship. You had, of course, many firsts. You had the Indian Institute of Science. You had the first city to be electrified. The idea of getting a means to get more productivity in Bangalore, which resulted in longer hours to work, better working conditions. Eventually, you had the universities come in, the University of Mysore, which was the first outside of British India. Apart from that, higher studies, as I already mentioned, in the Indian Institute of Science. You had every realm looked into, including upliftment in society as well, with the first state to bring in reservation pre-India in 1918. So you're working on multiple fronts, engaging all of societies coming together, all of societies being educated and contributing to the workforce, and to the eventual outcome of building the Mysore state and the Mysore brand, which resulted, of course, in the many Mysore products we have to this day in our imagination continuing. That same idea we wanted to recreate in the modern world privately, of course, prior to me being a politician. The idea that heritage is not necessarily limited to your buildings and your culture, but also to a heritage of innovation and entrepreneurship. And that narrative point was the motivation for building Berunda Foundation, which eventually, of course, is the parent organization for Cyberverse Foundation as well. And cybersecurity now is the realm you want to be in. And our motivation was certainly the fact that it is, very nascent in India, but at the same time, the closeness to Bangalore and the fact that Bangalore was completely oversaturated, obviously, and we wanted aspects of IT moving out so that we could be supporting pillars to Bangalore was another motivation as well. And that all sort of allowed us to be at the right place at the right time, and we had that narrative point flowing as well. And that added tremendous value in towards of what Cyberverse has become today. And we're very happy to be today adding to that initial goal of wanting to be a not-for-profit organization, but at the same time building a cybersecurity ecosystem in Mysore, which gives value not just as a not-for-profit or a social endeavor, but towards other commercial establishments and creating businesses and value in terms of the economy there in Mysore as well, and becoming a consistent economic driver for the city of Mysore.
Shri Yaduveer, you've emphasized positioning Mysore as a supporting pillar to Bangalore in IT sector. In fact, PTR, who opened the session yesterday in an interview with the president, Rajesh, were also talking about developing tier 2 and tier 3 cities in the state of Tamil Nadu. How do you envision AI-driven innovations and skill development being leveraged to empower individuals and small businesses in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, while ensuring that the benefits of AI are not concentrated just in metros, like you said, but to contribute to inclusive growth?
The great thing that AI allows us to do is, in all probability and from my understanding of it, is build models that allow us to replicate the successes that have happened in the metros, and at the same time avoid the negative aspects and those aspects of what the metros have created that are undesirable. The congestion that the cities have, the lack of planning because of, the influx of growth that came in, etc. All of those things, I suppose AI will be the right tool in modeling going forward, and both us as government, private institutions, corporates, can also apply this in their growth going forward, because we have a joint responsibility and a joint custodianship towards developing of a city going forward. Mysore has this added layer of heritage that comes from before as well. So you have this old buildings, you have this old culture, and all of that has to be imbibed going forward. It is not I think in any which way a speed breaker or a obstacle for growth, but rather something that complements and gives a unique perspective to that growth, and adds, I think, value in the long run in sort of pursuing, keeping that heritage alive in a modern outlook. And I think that's where AI can come in and help out a lot. And it's in general the great equalizer, because now everybody has means and access to a wealth of knowledge, and depending on how you use it, it I think can add a lot of value to what we are trying to achieve as well. I mean, certainly I'm not, surely not the first one, or not going to be the last one of using AI at many times to answer many of the questions I have, because undoubtedly, yesterday morning I was speaking at what was a Jayanti celebration in Piriyapatna, which is one end of my constituency. I was in the evening at Kollegal. I was talking about the 50 years of emergency, and now I'm here with you all in Chennai talking about cybersecurity and AI. So I will not be lying if I said that throughout all of this, I've had to use AI itself to make sure, my mind is aligned in the right place. So it is the great tool that will allow us to do such things. It has allowed me to be a lot more productive, but at the same time, I'm adding my opinion and my thought and my emotional or sentimental quotient into it, which gives it its own flavor. So again, AI is a tool, and you have to use it rightfully. The stage which we are on today, as long as it's used productively to gain more positive insights and positive worldview to the people there, we are using it in the right way. But the same stage also can be done for something negative, and I think that is the challenge we had ahead with us in AI, like many other things that have come before us as well.
Just adding to His Highness's point about how AI can be an enabler for us. I often say digital transformation or AI transformation should not be done for the sake of tech. It's just not tech for the sake of tech. It's about how it enables the organization to move forward. In fact, there is a survey from McKinsey which had mentioned that 70% of the digital transformations fail because people are not brought along with the transformation. So the question that I'd leave you with is, whenever we are implementing tech, let's ask ourselves, is tech controlling us or are we controlling tech? If the answer is the latter, I think we are in a good space. Thank you for sharing that, Yaduveer. I want to come back to the point about policy that you spoke about earlier. There's a large ecosystem at play when it comes to development, application, and responsible use of AI. As an elected public servant, you have a role in shaping policies for the future as well. What specific public policies or regulatory frameworks do you envision will be crucial to guide the ethical development and deployment of AI?
I mean, as policy goes, and now you bring it up, just want to quickly mention that we are celebrating 10 years of Digital India. And of course, the many successes we've seen over the last 10 years under the leadership of our Prime Minister and the successive governments that we've had, and now finally in the third edition of the same under our Prime Minister, I think we've seen a complete transformation, and that has been led by the framework of policy that we have created. The idea that Digital India is going to be the empowering base which gives all of India the equality that we've been aspiring to from day one of when we've been, from day one of our freedom as well. So that has been certainly achieved, and there are many statistics I can go through, but we are all using many of the applications that have been come through that digitization of India, from the Digital India stack to the many applications and the many benefits that have come there. Similarly, under an AI also, we have the national framework for the AI, which has been in the process of framing a uniquely Indian perspective and a uniquely Indian worldview towards dealing with AI. I think that is the crucial thing where we want to be moving forward with, especially in the digital world. There is no borders, as we well know, and me being in cyber security, I've learned that the hard way. You essentially, the perpetrators of cyber crime do not recognize your borders, but we have to play within that framework. So it's all the more crucial that policy framework, especially in something that is, going to certainly completely transform the world in AI, is done in a uniquely Indian way. Of course, we aspire to or subscribe to the global trends, but that framework has to be an Indian framework. It has to be built on those Bharatiya values. Luckily for us, those intrinsic or inherent Bharatiya values are completely commensurate with the digital world values as well, which we are all aspiring to. That of being pluralistic in whatever worldview you might have, whatever perspective you have, whatever religion you might have. That idea of pluralism is a uniquely Bharatiya thing. Alongside that, the democracy that we've been working so hard towards keeping is something that the digital world also subscribes to, and we as Indians over the last 75 odd years have certainly upheld that value ever since we've had that constitutional framework. So building on that Bharatiya value base, the constitutional framework that modern India has, envisioning that in the digital world and then placing it within the global order will be what we are aspiring to as policymakers going forward. I mean, we can get into the details. Obviously, the data has to be housed here. The sovereign policy that, everything is within our borders, an AI cloud, all of those details we can certainly get into, and those are things which everybody here knows. But the aspect of it has to be a uniquely Indian approach and has to envision that policy within a Indian framework going forward.
Thank you, Shri Yaduveer. I'll now open it up to a couple of questions from the audience.
I have a very typical corporate question. Does the royal family also face issues with Gen Z, employing them and so on?
Well, I'm sure they aren't anything new. Every generation thinks the next generation is headed for disaster, and certainly the same is true here. We try our best to live up to the expectations of those who have come before us, and certainly in my household, obviously there is a greater stress on that going forward, but there's no, I say, limitation towards envisioning that within a modern context. If not, I certainly wouldn't be, trying my hand at building a cybersecurity ecosystem in Mysore. So I think those are just normal things that our biology has inbuilt for us, and we have to subscribe and align ourselves with relevant developments. But I think the old values hold true no matter which perspective you look at it from. And certainly melding those two things has been the challenge and also the most beneficial thing for me personally in my own personal growth going forward. So certainly, yes, like any other household, those frictions always remain, but you find a way around them. And I think the older generation understands and the younger generation moves forward, understanding that we have to hold some values, but we can certainly move forward in the modern world. And hopefully our learnings will eventually lead to us, being better with our forerunners or the next generation. But, there always comes a time when we think ours is always better.
True. Thank you so much, Highness.
My question is, how can we leverage our strength in the digital world, in the physical world? Because in the physical world, there's a lot of, we can see some obvious shortcomings. So how have you been thinking about how we can leverage our strengths in AI, etc., in the physical world, which needs a lot of improvement?
Leverage AI in the physical world, as in, if you can elaborate on.
So things like physical infrastructure, roads, bridges,
certainly,
drainage.
Certainly, because see, Mysore, always what I want to preserve and what I'm keenly interested in always is architecture. Mysore has a very unique architecture that reflects the various times it has, rather the history it has seen over the last 200 years. You have, of course, temples that are thousands of years old in Mysore. After that, of course, those were spared the vicissitudes of time, if you want to say. And then eventually, you had the buildings that came in during the Kingdom of Mysore, during the early times, which were obviously very elaborate from the Victorian era, but had a uniquely Mysore flavor. You had from the period after that, where it was the Edwardian, etc., but were deeply influenced, but a more pragmatic approach, because the state now had scaled up and was building at a large extent, but obviously had to still maintain some flavor. Then eventually you had my grandfather's time with the Second World War, and you get eventually down to this Art Deco, Art Nouveau movement, and finally you come into the socialist era of early India, and eventually from there it's downward to the RCC buildings, but that's an argument for another day. But we want to preserve that artistic heritage. And I think that's where AI can play a great part of envisioning that same thing in a modern context. How can we add modern apparatus to such buildings? How can we ensure that these buildings are preserved, but at the same time have a facility that is commensurate with any modern building? And then the new buildings that Mysore builds, how can that be reimagined is a key idea going forward, because the new India we're going to build, I think that purely socialistic viewpoint, where everything is built only for purpose, needs to go away. I think we need an architectural revolution in India, because we need to move away now towards coming back towards that aesthetic value we had in India. And so that pure passion of mine is where AI can come in and give us the solutions we require. How can we add value and beauty to things which traditionally in India, at least in the last, our free era of freedom, we've looked at being only for the sake of purpose. How can we get that aesthetic back to it and that beauty back to it? I think that in terms of architecture, and I'm sure in a plethora of areas, we can see how to apply.
Shri Yaduveer, looking ahead, if AI's ultimate purpose is to serve humanity, what is your ultimate hope for how technology, guided by human values and leadership, can reshape the human experience in India over the next decade?
Well, it is right now the big thing that is happening. And we've had many big things happen at a very fast pace. However, our memory seems to always fade when it happened that we had the great computer age of coming in the late 90s, early 90s to late 90s. Then you had various other things coming in the 2000s. You had very big events happening with the social media, etc., with Facebook, and we thinking that's the new great thing, and how do we adapt to that? And now you have AI coming in as well. I think it's just the current big thing until the next big thing. And we have to adapt and allow ourselves to use it the right way. I think we get caught up, obviously, in the whole marketing around it, and I'm not trying to in any which way downplay the importance of AI and or the revolution it's going to bring in. Certainly Facebook and the entire social media age of things brought in such a big change to the way we use things, mobile phones, everything have brought in such a big change, and certainly AI will do the same. But I think at the end of the day, we have to see it in the context of history and understand that this is the current big thing, and it's not going to be the last big thing. And certainly there'll be other big things coming forward, and we have to ride this wave the same way we've done the previous ones, take the learnings we've had from them, and positively apply the hypothesis or the learnings we have from the previous waves, and ensure that this is a tool for good and advancing humanity and building the ideal society we're all aspiring to going forward. And I think that is the key challenge for us all here. And I'm sure we all are adhering to it, while also enjoying the fact that this is the current big thing, and enjoying that moment as well in the present.
Thank you. I've just been told that we have a few more minutes for a couple of more questions, so I will pass it back to the floor.
My question is, my kids study almost the same thing that I studied 30 years back. While formal school education inculcates some of the most important qualities like consistency, resiliency, etc., we largely think our system of education is outdated. So as policymaker, as someone in power to bring a change, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm largely in agreement with you, although I will add the fact that the digital revolution is happening at a much faster pace than any of us ever imagined. It has already in our hands. In fact, we were just speaking before we came in here, the need for this technology etiquette, the cyber hygiene programs where we're creating awareness and understanding technology etiquette. Generally our behaviors, our table mannerisms, our behavioral mannerisms, our greeting each other, then extending to, in cybersecurity, what in the world we would lock our doors, not take sweets from strangers, not talk to strangers. Those things in the digital world haven't been taught to us because our parents themselves are very new to it, or our elders who teach us these things traditionally are very new to it. They themselves don't know it. In fact, most of the times in cybercrime, it is our elders and our parents who fall prey rather than the younger generation. So when such a environment has been created, it is, yes, imperative that policymakers create programs around creating awareness and increasing knowledge in this aspect. But also, it is the fact of the matter that this revolution which has happened in digital, in AI, and all of these things has hit us so fast that we've been unable to really comprehend the extent to which it has gone to the extreme ends of society. So certainly we are working on that. There are many private players, and Cyberverse included, who are doing the cyber hygiene programs. I'm hoping there's someone who does the etiquette, because I think all of us need it in terms of where we should be using our phones and where we should be leaving them at the door and coming in to actually engage with people. It's a much needed hour. Digital understanding of how technology is meant to be used. Normal etiquette, which we are all taught, shaking hands, saying good morning, saying good evening, greeting each other, and then, manners at the table, etc. That with our digital devices, how do we do that in a polite way also is something that needs to come in, certainly. And beyond that, more important things such as cyber hygiene or cyber awareness. And then beyond that, even with AI, the awareness that needs to come in towards ethical use and proper use in terms of its in terms of the applications of AI around us, and then also in means of developing it going forward and deploying it as well. I think all these aspects of it need to be properly aligned with policy, and certainly we are working. We've built up the framework, and I'm sure as fast as we can, but at quality policy as well, we will be implementing the same.
If I can just summarize what we just heard. One, anything related to technology or AI is an ecosystem play. So there is the government, which has a role in creating policies and in making sure that the governance is right. There is the industry and the players who need to look at what the use cases, development of technology, deployment of technology. There is the academia, which can build on skilling for reskilling. But let's face it, half-life of skills is less than 18 months in technology today. So unless the pace of development of training and skilling is outpacing that, we will forever be catching up. And therefore, the fourth element, creating awareness and making sure that the users are aware of how to responsibly use AI, becomes very critical. And that's why there's the importance of the ecosystem here that we're talking about. Next question. Yes.
Welcome to Chennai. The question is here about the Mysore city as an alternative IT hub to Bengaluru, because Bengaluru is almost like overflowing when it comes to the population. Yeah, for sure, we all believe that there should have been a roadmap making Mysore as the secondary or alternate hub, IT hub. Is it going on a right progress, or we are sticking on to have it as only as a cultural city? What is the development that has been made?
Well, obviously there are a lot of political dynamics, and we needn't get into that here. Safe to say in Karnataka, me as the BJP is in the opposing party, whereas in the center, obviously, we're in power. Those have its own dynamics, and we're working through that. But our goal is very clear that Mysore's development, which is happening, Mysore's already developing, it's already exceeded beyond the boundaries of what is the older city limit under the MCC, and it has grown far beyond that. We have developments in all corners of Mysore that have not been brought into the city limits. So development is happening, progress is happening. The question or the challenge ahead of us is what developmental framework are we going to bring that into? If we are going to allow it to grow sporadically, as we did in Bangalore, and then try to bring it under the umbrella of a BBMP or something else, we would have failed in our objective, because it is apparent to one and all the failings of Bangalore in terms of that aspect. It being a hub for all of the various industries it has, including the Silicon Valley of the East, which tag it still holds, I hope, has been undermined in many ways by the infrastructure issues that the city has, which is purely due to not putting a framework, not a constraint, but a framework for the development to happen. And I think that challenge is there ahead of us in Mysore. We are certainly looking within the current government has the plan of Greater Mysore, which was put in during our government's time, and they are trying to reframe that and put that into perspective now for what is, I believe, nearly 4 years ahead now. And certainly we as the central representatives will add whichever value we can, because at the end of the day, we are all working towards the same objective. Obviously, Mysore has its own unique history in the fact that it was once the capital of the state of Karnataka in its former avatar of Mysore. It has a tremendous cultural value. It has a tremendous amount of built heritage, as I mentioned before, in terms of architecture. It has a tremendous amount of cultural heritage, and it has a city tradition which is unique unto itself. So all of these things have to also be preserved within whatever the new city is building going forward. So how does a policy framework cover all these aspects, at the same time lend itself to a IT or a cybersecurity hub as well? So again, that is the challenge we have ahead, and the question also in terms of what we are looking to answer as policymakers going forward. And certainly, as the central representative, I've been lending my voice to it in every which way we can. Political dynamics aside, we don't want to use that as an excuse, but that's always there. And that is something we have to overcome in order to ensure that ours is the right framework for the growth of Mysore going forward.
Thank you, Shri. If you would allow me, I'd like to close with 5 takeaways that I had from listening to you and your perspectives. First one, humanity remains our North Star. Nurture belonging, it's something machines can't replicate just yet. Stewardship for the digital age. We have a critical responsibility to be stewards of our digital future. So it's not just what we're doing today, but what we are leaving for tomorrow. Innovation thrives everywhere. So by fostering local ecosystems like His Highness spoke about, creating supportive public policies, we can unlock immense potential and innovation across India. 4, embrace paradoxes, tradition and transformation. Progressive future can exist rather than erode with identities and values. They should not erode, but they should coexist with our identities and values. And 5th one, and most important, your role in shaping the future. Each one of us here, as leaders, innovators, and just members of the ecosystem, will have an active role in shaping a more connected, a more human-driven future for generations to come. With that, I'd like to welcome you all to put your hands together for His Highness, Shri Yaduveer Krishnadatta Chamaraja Wadiyar.